the league putting all the pressure on us players to make moves. We've made moves. We're waiting on you guys to respond. And at the end of the day, like, I think they're waiting for us players to crack. I'm telling you, we are unified as it gets right now. And like, we don't have a season that says a lot more about the WNBA league than us, because we're ready. Like, we are all training. We are all playing. We are ready to go. But we are not going to play for less than...
Are you ready for this? Because just minutes ago, something happened around Caitlin Clark that didn't feel real at first. This wasn't a rumor you could casually ignore or a slow headline building over several days. This was sudden, sharp, and confusing, and the word that started spreading was resigns. At first, people thought it was fake, another viral clip, another misleading caption. Because why would Caitlin Clark step away right now? Right when everything was finally starting to align. Right when the Indiana Fever looked ready to rise. And right when the entire league was watching her every move. It simply didn't make sense. But then more pieces started appearing. More clips, more reactions, more conversations. And suddenly it wasn't just a name being mentioned. It was 3 names: Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexie Hull, all connected and all being mentioned together at the same time. That's when confusion started turning into something else, because now this didn't feel like a random rumor anymore. It felt coordinated. Fans immediately started reacting, asking the same questions everywhere. What just happened? Did she actually resign? Why are all 3 players involved? Is something going on inside the team? Because when multiple players are tied to one unexpected announcement, it never feels random. It feels planned. At first, there was no clear explanation, no official statement, just small fragments of information in short clips spreading across social media. People kept replaying the same few seconds over and over, trying to catch something others missed. And the more they watched, the stranger it started to feel. Nothing about the moment looked completely normal. The tone, the timing, the reactions, everything felt slightly off. And that's when the speculation really exploded. Because if this wasn't a simple update, then what was it? Inside the Indiana Fever organization, something had already been building quietly. Not publicly, not dramatically, but slowly behind the scenes. Because when a player like Caitlin Clark enters a team, it doesn't just add talent, it shifts everything. The system changes, the pace changes, the expectations change, and most importantly, the balance inside the locker room changes. And that balance doesn't always settle smoothly. At first, everything looked fine from the outside. Training sessions, team chemistry, positive media coverage, everything seemed under control. But underneath the surface, adjustments were happening, roles were evolving, voices were shifting, and decisions were being made. And not everyone experienced those changes in the same way. Because when one player becomes the center of everything, the entire structure of a team begins to change around them.
It would be hard for the Indiana Fever fans to part ways with Sophie Cunningham. It absolutely would be devastating. We want Tres Leches back together. We want the blonde bomber, Sophie Cunningham, back. Here it says, while the 29-year-old veteran only spent the 2025 season with the Fever and missed a solid chunk of games with an injury, she did many things to endear herself to Indiana's loyal fan base. Perhaps the 2 most important were being a spark plug and serving as star guard Caitlin Clark's enforcer. Okay, we love Sophie Cunningham for stepping in during that Connecticut Sun ambush attack that was taking place on Caitlin Clark. Make no mistake about that. Here it says it earned her notoriety from the women's basketball community and admiration from Fever fans, Caitlin Clark fans. However, the harsh reality is that the WNBA is a business, and as much as everybody wants Cunningham back in Indianapolis, the Fever are between a rock and a hard place right now. Okay? Here, why the Fever protecting Sophie Cunningham doesn't make sense. The rules for the upcoming WNBA expansion draft for the Toronto Temple and Portland Fire were revealed March 25th. As expected, teams will be allowed to protect 5 players. The first 4 players are obvious for Indiana: Caitlin Clark, Aliyah Boston, Lexie Hull, and Kelsey Mitchell. Most agree that the fifth.
When a player like Caitlin Clark enters a team, everyone else has to adjust around that kind of gravity. Some players adapt quickly, some take time, and some struggle with it. That's where the tension began. It wasn't loud and it wasn't visible from the outside, but it was real. Inside the locker room, there were serious conversations happening about the direction of the team, about control, and about how the team would actually operate once the season started. According to insiders, those conversations started becoming more direct, more focused, and more decisive, because now there wasn't just potential anymore, there were real expectations. And when expectations rise, pressure rises with them. That's when Caitlin Clark stepped into that space. Not publicly, not emotionally, but clearly and firmly. Because when you are the centerpiece of a franchise, your voice carries weight whether you want it to or not. And what she said, according to people close to the situation, slowly started changing how things were moving within the team. Not in one dramatic moment, but through a series of decisions that followed. Suddenly, the direction of the team felt locked in, and once a direction is locked in, everything else starts adjusting around it. That includes roles, playing time, responsibilities, and sometimes even roster positions. That's where Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull enter the story, because now their positions didn't feel as stable as before. Not because of one mistake or one bad game, but because the system itself was changing. And when the system changes, fit becomes everything. If you don't fit perfectly into the new system, things can get complicated very quickly. That's when the timing of this announcement started making more sense. Because if something shifted internally, then the situation wasn't random. It was connected. And if it was connected, then the word resigns might not mean what people first thought it meant. Sometimes words spread faster than context, and by the time the full context arrives, the story has already taken on a life of its own. That's exactly what happened here. People weren't just reacting to facts anymore. They were reacting to interpretations. And interpretation creates chaos, because one short clip can mean 10 different things, and one moment can be seen from 10 different perspectives. In situations like this, that's all it takes for confusion to spread everywhere. Meanwhile, the team stayed completely quiet. No confirmations, no denials, just silence. But that silence didn't calm anything down. It only made everything louder.
Over 100 veterans who will become free agents. This limits their options, okay? Also, note is that the Fever can only give one core designation to a veteran this offseason and will almost certainly use that on Kelsey Mitchell. Therefore, if one of the two expansion teams were to use their pick on Cunningham, and thus give her the veteran supermax contract, as per the rules, she'll surely take that because she won't be able to get that much money from the Fever or any other team in free agency. And like I said, if Sophie Cunningham gets picked by another team in the expansion draft and they're giving her a supermax, the Indiana Fever, you were never going to give her that on the open market anyway, so you would lose her regardless. If you keep Sophie Cunningham, not core her, but if you protect her in the expansion draft, she still hits the market as a free agent. And if someone offers her a max contract, you can't match it anyway. You got to let her go. So there's no point in you losing a Michaela Timpson if something like that could happen. And the point is, I don't think neither one of these teams are going to pick Sophie Cunningham and give her a max contract to be there. So I think the Indiana Fever will be fine there, and she'll just be hitting the market as an unrestricted free agent, and the Indiana Fever would have the same opportunity to retain her.
Because when there are no clear answers, people start creating their own, and that's exactly what began happening here. Some people believe this was a major internal decision inside the Indiana Fever organization. Others believed it was all just a misunderstanding that had spread too quickly online. And some believed it was something much bigger that still hadn't fully unfolded yet. That uncertainty is what kept the story alive, because now everyone was watching, waiting, and trying to figure out what this actually meant. If Caitlin Clark really made a move this early, then this wasn't just a small moment. It was a signal about direction, about control, and about what this team is slowly becoming. And if Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull are part of that shift, then their roles and their future automatically become part of the same story. Because once a team commits to a system, everything either aligns with that system or gets left behind by it. That's what makes this moment feel so important, because this isn't really about one announcement anymore. It's about what happens next. If the situation continues to develop, then more changes could follow, more adjustments, more surprises, and maybe more moments that nobody expects. Because this is usually how big changes begin. Quietly, confusingly, and without full answers, until suddenly everything becomes clear. But by the time everything becomes clear, the impact has already started. Right now, it feels like we are at that exact point where something has started but hasn't fully revealed itself yet. Because whatever this moment really is, whatever it eventually turns into, it has already done one important thing. It has changed the conversation. And once the conversation changes, everything else starts to follow. In a league where attention drives everything, moments like this don't just fade away. They grow, they spread, and eventually they come back even louder. So now the only question left is simple. What happens next? Because whatever that answer is, it's going to matter more than anyone expected. And if this really is a beginning of something bigger, then this sudden shift, this unexpected announcement, might only be the start.